Welcome, welcome, and it's that time of the week again. It's the Ort Jet Business Show. I'm your host, David Zidel, and we're going to talk business. Tonight we got Arthur Gillis with us. He's the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings. I'm going to introduce Arthur to you in a second, but as you know, we start off with a business story. And the business story tonight is around a little clip somebody sent me that speaks about how much time people and animals actually sleep. And believe it or not, the brown bat sleeps for 83% of its day. It sleeps for almost 20 hours every single day. And it's got the list of all the different animals and how much time they need to sleep. A lion, for instance, sleeps for 56% of the time, and it goes all the way down. And I'm not sure which is the lowest, but on this list, a giraffe is the lowest that sleeps for 8% of the time. And a human being is the only one that's on this list 3 times. Because when it's a baby, when we're an infant, we sleep for 16 hours. That's 66% of the time. Then it goes down to less than that. And adults sleep for 33% of the time. And then when we get to what's called the elderly, now I don't know what's termed the elderly, but it's 23% of our time we sleep. So we seem to sleep less and less. And how does this relate to business? Well, it relates to business in that we're limited with time. And in business, there's a concept of speed is better than accuracy. You need to decide what you want to do. You need to start being accurate, but don't spend your whole time trying to be 100% accurate, because while you're doing that, it's as if you're sleeping and somebody will overtake you. So that's the lesson for today, and hopefully Arthur will tell us how he didn't sleep and how maybe his competitors were sleeping and how he caught up and overtook them. So it's a great honor to have Arthur Gillis, the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings. And he is South Africa's, or one of South Africa's most respected hoteliers. He's a man who helped build a homegrown hotel group into a continent-led brand. Who's that hotel group? He's the co-founder of Protea Hotels, and he grew it just from a handful of hotels, I think it was about 4 hotels, to over 100 hotels before facilitating the sale to Marriott. And that was, I think, in 2014. Today, Arthur leads the Platinum Hospitality Holdings, and he focuses on hotel asset management. And he's developed across South Africa, and he's bringing more than his 4 decades of hand-on experience in every single corner of hospitality to the business. He's driven by the insatiable curiosity and a focus on doing a few things exceptionally well. We'll talk to him about how does he build the team? How does he build the brand? How did he make use of opportunities? And how did he deal with the challenges of hospitality, which is hard enough anywhere in the world, but especially in Africa? And what are the lessons that he can share with us in whatever career we're in? Arthur, welcome to the show. It is an absolute honor to have you with us. And let me start in the beginning. Where were you born, first of all? And then why do you think you landed up getting into the hotel business?
David, thank you very much. It's really a huge honor to be with you. Your reputation speaks for itself. And I think that Ort Jet is the most astounding organization, and it is a privilege to be here. I grew up in Oudtshoorn, with the land of the ostriches. Was called Jerusalem, Drom Africa. At the turn of the century, there were 300 families there. And in fact, my grandparents were the first Jews to get married in Israel, in Oudtshoorn. And they got married in the NG church. There was no shul. and it's my great-grandfather, and he actually set about building the first shul in Oudtshoorn.
So I just want to, if I can just interject there for those
so
that
I'm a boerenjood, is what I was saying.
That's great. So those who don't understand, you said it was the Jerusalem of South Africa.
Growing up as a Jewish boy in Oudtshoorn, my first language was and is Afrikaans. English is my second language, so forgive me for the poor enunciation. I've carried that with me my whole life. And yes, I, at school, wanted to buy a motorbike and wanted to pay for flying lessons. My father was really having none of either of those. And so I went to work on an ostrich farm, taking people around as a tour guide, moved across to a brand new farm that was about to be built. The hotel was, the ostrich operation was actually in a hotel. So we moved in there, and I was, in those days, in grade 10. School during the day, and then the afternoon I would take tours and so on. And unfortunately, the manager was less than, he was honest, but he wasn't fanatical about it. So we then fired the general manager as a 14-year-old boy. I wasn't allowed into the bar, but anyway, that was the way that was, and remained in the hotel business all my life.
When you say we fired him, who's the we?
I got hold of the owners of the hotel, told them what was going on. They were quite hysterical, and together with them, we fired him.
How did you feel as a 14-year-old? Did you look at it with triumph, or did you look at it with trepidation, thinking, somebody's lost their job?
Neither. I looked at it with huge sadness. It was for me a terribly sad moment that this person had sunk into that. Something had obviously gone wrong in their lives, and they felt the need to put their hand in the scrum. I had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, I didn't have a clue, but we had to get it right quickly. And together with the owners, assisted in finding a proper general manager for them. And then I worked for him for quite a while. And that's basically the story. And that place, this was 1972. I know most of your listeners think that in those days, snakes had legs. It was that long ago. But that hotel is still part of the Protea Hotel portfolio today.
And was that the first Protea hotel? Is it correct, my intro, that you took over 4 hotels?
Yeah, the brief history is that we were working for Sanlam. Sanlam owned a hotel. It was actually the Trust Bank, and then Sanlam foreclosed on Trust Bank, and we ran that hotel. And then we found an opportunity of a hotel that was going insolvent. And quietly behind the scenes, without them really knowing, we put in a bid and took that one over and started making profits day one. In fact, we paid for the hotels in the first 6 months. We paid 100% back. And then the great Professor Fred du Plessis was the chairman of the board at Sanlam, asked us to go to Sanlamir, where he'd had a series of general managers that didn't kind of work out. So then we had 3 hotels, and then unbeknown to him, we bought a hotel in Johannesburg, a very big hotel, 358 bedrooms, and then we had 4 hotels. And he called us in and he said, "Hey guys, I know you're working for me, and I know we pay your salaries, and it's very nice that you're doing this, but I want out of the hotel business, not in." So our chairman, managing director, Otto Stellick, flew to Johannesburg and convinced Prof du Plessis that we would form a management company. We had no idea what that was. And Prof said, "Fine, I'll throw in my 4 hotels, but I do want to sell them quite soon." And with that in mind, in 1984, we started off this. As Otto fondly reminds me even today, we started with no money, and we've got most of it left.
So if we go back to that first, or maybe even that second hotel that you said paid back so quickly within 6 months.
Yeah.
Take us through, so our listeners are people, they got 2 approaches. Some are business people wanting to learn the lessons. Others love the business stories, as I do. What did you do? What can someone learn from what you did? How do you take something and turn a profit so quickly? What do you look for that's not working? Do you have a set approach, or is each one individual?
Every single one is different. Every single one is unique. We only get involved in things where we believe that we can make a difference. In this case, the hotel was owned by Sats Brothers Steel, They built the Ritz in Sea Point and the Shore Plaza. So it was the Ritz Plaza and the Shore Plaza. And for some reason, their steel business was struggling. They were mega operators back in the day. And the hotels were not core to their steel business, and they wanted to focus back on the steel business. So they decided to unload the assets as fast as they could. Because they weren't in the hotel business, we saw incredibly arrogantly, and luckily nobody told us that we were wrong. We saw opportunities where we could perhaps turn this thing around. And that is exactly what we did. So we bought the hotel for rock bottom prices, did a refurbishment, which is not swapping an engine on a car. It's like doing open heart surgery, because we never closed the hotel for one day. 365 days a year, this thing ran with builders, with people running up and down, delivering stuff to the rooms. And we were very fortunate. That's where the luck part comes in. It was just the time that people needed more hotels. We were then graded 4 stars, and the hotel obviously did extremely well.
So you could actually say, in your case, you really got it for a steal.
Never thought of that. You're right. And we had a couple of principles. So Otto set 3 principles in the early days. I talk quite a lot about him because he, is my mentor and the most incredible human being, still is today. We worked together for 40 years, and we never once had an argument. We disagreed whether the wall should be painted green or blue, and we had that kind of conversation, but we never ever had fights and that stuff. We never did that, and that's more tribute to him than me, because he's 10 years older than me, and he's one of these guys. Everybody loves him. I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't like Otto. So what he did was he set these values, and the first value was the respect for human dignity, and we worked around the respect for human dignity. And in many of the hotels that we took over then and subsequently, we felt that was lacking. And if you walk in and sit down with everybody and you have a cup of coffee and you chat to them about their hopes, dreams, and aspirations, and treat them as partners in your business, then absolutely anything is possible. And so this was for us a zero-sum game. If anybody ever violated one of those, any person in the organization could call it for what it is. So let's assume that I walked past a waiter and didn't say hello to them or whatever. Anybody could come up to me and say, I don't think that's respect for human dignity. And so they called the behavior, not the person. They didn't say, Arthur, you're an idiot. They would say, I don't think that behavior is becoming upon somebody, who's in this organization and says that they respect human dignity. So we have to do better than that. And the other one was search for excellence, that whatever we did would be in an excellent way. And then a story on guest service, that would be the best that we could do. And in fact, that's what I wrote a book about, because guest service is at the core, at the very center of the hospitality business.
And the third point, or was that part of what you said?
It's excellence, it's respect for human dignity, excellence, and then best guest service. So the excellence was, we'll do things in an excellent way. If we're going to produce a set of financials, Otto was very famous for that. On a Sunday, he'd come into the office Sunday night, and if you'd sent him documentation where the numbers didn't add up or there was a mistake, he'd take the whole lot and throw it away. He says, if I find one mistake, it means it's not excellent. It's either going to be excellent or it's not. If it's excellent, then there are no mistakes on it. So we sweated bullets getting everything right for him.
So let's go back to the first one, respect for human dignity.
Yeah.
And you were saying that anybody can call anybody else out. Did anyone call you out on that? Somebody who would be seen as lower in the organization? Did people have confidence to call you out when you didn't, when you violated that?
Unfortunately, that happened with monotonous regularity. And the main reason for that is all the awards that I won. I won awards from every organization. And the only reason you win those awards is because you've got a PR team that are out there that are finding them for you. So it's not actually, it's an absolute nonsense. It's a rubbish. It's puffery. It's inflating your ego if you allow it to do so. So I had a standard speech, this is not for me, it's for the team. But you can start believing that nonsense. And then you start believing that you are a different level to everybody else. It's absolute nonsense. Every single person in the organization contributes the same as everybody else. And therefore, if one of us did anything wrong, we would do that. We had a way of bringing us all back down to earth. And if I can give you a simple, you're looking for business stories, I'll give you one. We realized that people out there were rolling out the red carpet for us and treating us with enormous dignity that we, in all honesty, did not deserve. So we felt that we needed to pull ourselves off the pedestal. And the way that we did that is we created a thing called the Golden Lemon of the Year. The Golden Lemon is the person who makes the biggest mistake. And the very first award went to Otto because he imported a container of beer from Austria. And 6 months later, we had a container -5 cases, which was 1 case for each of the directors. We had managed to sell none of the rubbish, and it was going off. And so we had to write the whole lot off. And we had a black tie dinner, and he stood up there and he thanked everybody for their contribution in allowing him to win this most prestigious award of his life. The general manager of the hotels didn't sell the stuff. We didn't do it. And we kind of made this joke about ourselves. I was the second recipient. The other members of the board of directors all won it. And then anybody in the organization won it. So I would be sitting in a meeting and somebody would run in and they'd say, guess what? I've just qualified for the Golden Lemon nominee. I don't know if I'm going to win it, but I've qualified. I've made a mistake. And that comes from NASA when they sent the first man to the moon. They had 2 rules. One, it's absolutely fine to make mistakes. But the first and most important thing is if you make a mistake, tell somebody about it. Because if you don't tell somebody about it, it can cost somebody else their life. And the second part is don't do it again. We're not rewarding stupidity here. So you make a mistake, it's good enough, but don't do it again. And that was stuff that became legend and everybody spoke about it. And, like Otto would go on a tour of the hotels and one of the guys would take the bins out and say, Otto, how's Lovenbrow going? So we created an environment which actually tried to, as far as humanly possible, level the playing fields.
So if anyone's just tuned in and you're listening to us right now and thinking, who's this person talking about a golden lemon? This is Arthur Gillis, the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings, previous owner of Protea Hotels. And he's speaking about the 3 principles of the company. Respect for human dignity was the first one. The second was search for excellence. And the third is best guest service. And what you're talking about, Arthur, I think with the first one, respect for human dignity, and the way you created this Golden Lemon Award and getting anyone to call you out for anything, it's almost creating what a lot of people talk about is the corporate culture. And it's a corporate culture where it's okay to call people out for the mistakes. In fact, it's okay to admit your own mistakes because a lot of people don't. And I think what's valid and maybe what the listeners can focus on is you can't correct a mistake if you don't know about it. And so many people are trying to hide the mistakes rather than celebrate them because now you've got something to fix. And would you say that was a great part of your success, the respect for human dignity, not only for the dignity, but the culture that it created?
David, you are spot on the money. I'm going to draw back to the story, the analogy that you gave us in the beginning about time. So if you assume that somebody is somewhere in the middle of the cycle, they're sleeping for 8 hours, they are out doing recreation, sport, whatever for 8 hours, and they'd work for 8 hours. I don't know what that looks like because I've never worked 8 hours in my life. But anyway, let's assume that you are doing 8. In our case, it's more like 10, 12, 16, 18, whatever. But if you're going to do that, you might as well have fun while you're there. There's no point in doing it and being bloody miserable. So companies create a culture of fear, or they create a culture of superiority, or they create a culture of bureaucracy. And all of those things are, in my opinion, a terrible mistake, a fatal mistake. And you watch companies that are started by entrepreneurs and gradually go into bureaucracy as they work out lots and lots of different creative ways of saying no. Nobody's authorized to say yes. We tried to do it the other way around, and we said, we just like to work in a place where everybody loves coming to work. So at Platinum Hospitality, every single person in the organization's birthday is celebrated. But not only that, every one of their spouses is celebrated and every one of their children is celebrated. So if you have a 13-year-old son, he will in all probability receive a rugby ball from us. We do research on each and every one of the kids, on each and every one of the partners. And so if somebody ever were to go to their spouse and say, I'm not sure that I should stay in this company, the spouse will say, but where am I going to get my birthday present from? And the kids will do the same. So we do that, and we are very inclusive, with the result that we have no people that work from home. Everybody comes into the office, probably with the exception of one person whose work is actually suited to be remote, and that's what she does. And she's in as often as she can be. Everybody else is here because our version of doing this is somebody calls and they want a decision. We just shout, meeting, and everybody who's available comes into the meeting, make no difference who you are. We throw the idea on the table and we look at it from black, white, Jewish, Protestant, Muslim, different ages, whatever. We've got a whole demographic smarty box here. And we look at these problems from different angles and bang, we throw out a couple of solutions and it's over and done with. But everybody feels part of all of these solutions. We work on the theory that none of us is as smart as all of us. So that's what we do. We try and do that stuff collaboratively. And you can only do that with the right culture, and you can only create a culture if people are there. So for any listeners that I'm offending, my apologies. Maybe it's because I'm old school, but it's very hard to create a company culture for people that are working online. Yeah. It's probably impossible.
It's interesting. You remind me of that quote that says, who is smart? And the answer is he who learns from everybody. And that's exactly what you're saying. The second point of yours is search for excellence. And I want to find out, where do you search for that excellence? What's the way that you do it? But we need to do that after the break. Welcome back. I'm David Zidel. You're listening to the Ort Jet Business Show, and we're listening together to Arthur Gillis, the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings. He grew Protea Hotels from a handful of properties into the largest hotel operator in Africa. And just before the break, Arthur was sharing with us the three principles that run their business. The first is respect for human dignity, which we've spoken about. The second one is search for excellence. And the third one is best guest service. And just before the break, I asked Arthur around the service for excellence. Where do you search for that search for excellence? And I think there was a book called In Search of Excellence many, many years ago. And funny enough, they gave 50 different companies. And I believe that of the 50 companies, only a handful still exists. So the examples that I think it was somebody, Peters, who wrote In Search of Excellence. He used excellent companies that no longer exist, but yours is still existing, still growing. So where are you searching for excellence?
So I looked at this lot and said, how do you do excellence in the hospitality business? And I used to study every year at Cornell University in the States, and they gave examples of Disney, the Disney Corporation. Not their hotels, but their theme parks. And so I went down 7 years in a row down to Walt Disney World, and I didn't do what average or normal people do, which is go on the rides. I pestered them because they've got a sixth park that nobody knows about, and it's called they call them cast members. It's the cast, they've got the cast and guests. And so the cast members go on this extra ride. And that's the history of Disney and how, where they came from and so on. And eventually I managed to persuade them to open Disney University to the public. And I did the very first course at Disney University with all of these geniuses that had put the company together. And they taught us lots and lots of lessons. But one of the things that they do is their version is that you're in show business. So in show business, they look at something that you've done and they will make a comment that was either good show or poor show. So, for example, Mickey Mouse popping out from underneath, because as big as Disney World is on the ground, it's so big it is underneath. So if Mickey Mouse pops out in Futureland, that's poor show. Then he's not supposed to. There's certain doors that Mickey Mouse can go out of, like one of the characters from Aladdin will never ever be seen in Epcot, for example, right? So what they do then is I can walk past you and I can say, poor show. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not criticizing you, I'm criticizing our performance. And so we try to inculcate that as well, is that if we do a gala dinner for somebody, at the end of the evening, we'll say either good show or poor show. And if it's poor show, then what is it that we could have done better? It's just an abbreviation. And my version of copyright is that you have the right to copy. So I copied this from Disney. I told them that I'd done it, and they were very cool about it. They said, just share some of your examples with us, which we then did for the first 10 years, of how we play that out. And so you criticize the act, not the person.
And I heard that every single actor, as you say, in Disneyland, they understand that it's about making the experience of the guest the best. So it's amazing that you went and copied that to do the same thing. And is that the way we learn, is to copy great things from other people?
We have to accept that there are people that are smarter than us. In my version, probably everybody's smarter than me. So I've yet to come across people that I can't learn something from. And my wife is a incredible proponent of this. She can be sitting on a coach somewhere, going to somewhere, and the next thing she's become friends with the person sitting next to her, and she tells me an amazing story about what they do and whatever, and how much there is to learn from it. And it is that learning and that openness, and that, to me, you mentioned it in the intro, is to me the single biggest contributor to success. And that the idea is that you have to be curious. For some reason, it got out into the kind of public domain that because I was, in inverted commas, retired, I was now, the interpretation was that I was available to do free consulting to everybody. So people line up over here, and I see a lot of people and I chat to them and so on. Frankly, I probably learn more than they do. But anyway, I see people. And in this mentoring two-way street process, we talk about curiosity. And if people come in here, and I've got objet in my office, what my late grandmother, God bless her, would have called dreck, all the rubbish that I've collected over the years and so on, and millions of pictures of my family, and the curious ones will start to ask me that. They'll start to say, gee, this is interesting. Where does this come from? Or what's this? And I would say, this is an old adding machine that my father used, or this is the diamond scale that my late grandfather used to weigh diamonds in Kimberley, which is where he was working, and all that kind of stuff. So everything's got a story. And by being curious about using the opportunity to learn from other people is, I think, as parents and as grandparents, in my case, it's the best thing we can teach our grandkids and children.
And then the third one that you speak about is the best guest service. And I know somebody who went to a hotel, and I'm not sure if it's one of your hotels, but he was absolutely blown away where everybody knew who he was. It was even the person bringing the linen greeted him by his name. And he was astounded at that. He actually said that somebody just came round the corner, didn't know he was going to be there, and greeted him by his name. And I think it's an important thing. I know, for instance, Howard Schultz from Starbucks says, we're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business. We just happen to be serving coffee. And is that what you mean by best guest service? Is it that your focus is on the people, or do you mean something else? And if that's what you mean, how do you do it within the hotel business?
So I'd like to believe that it was at one of our properties that somebody knew the guest's name. We bought the rights to the Cheers song where everybody knows your name. We used it as our TV promotion and radio promotions for about 15 years until the copyright ran out. And we taught our staff. We had staff videos and all that to teach everybody that. Before Puppy and all that, although it's easy today, there's a lot of stuff in the public domain, and all you need to do is research and you build a guest profile on who they are and what they like and so on and so forth, so you can have a conversation with them. That's a whole other story about the Johari window and moving into areas that you can engage the guest where they are experts, you find out what it is that they do, and so on. But I decided that, Otto had put up this best guest service, but what does it actually mean? And so I managed to get hold of a guy called Mike Lipkin, who was a motivational speaker in South Africa back in the day. And Mike and I did research on a couple of thousand companies, interviewed them, and got the information back on what it was that made them successful. And as a result of that, the book speaks about customer service excellence. And I dragged my sorry old weary backside around the world and talk about this. Mike still does the same thing. He's based out of Toronto now. And he's got a superb career speaking about this, and he's also a futurist. So we talk about, we know precisely what it is that is spectacular guest service. It's basically, the research shows that most people simply want what they paid for. So if you've rented a car, all you want is that the credit card has gone through, that car that you ordered is there, and they give you the keys and you get out of there. You don't need bells and whistles, singing, dancing, frontline, a cake with candles. You don't need any of that stuff. That's what people want most of the time. But every now and again, there's a thing called an MOT, moment of truth. And the moment of truth is when something has failed.
If I can just stop you there, because
of course,
that's a great spot to stop, because I want to ask you about that moment of
okay.
But again, we'll do it after the break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ort Jet Business Show. I'm David Zidel, and we're listening to Arthur Gillis, the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings. He grew Protea hotels from 4 to over 100 and then sold it to the Marriott in 2014. And he's still involved in the hotel business. And he was talking us through the 3 main principles: respect for human dignity, search for excellence, and best guest service. And just before the break, I interrupted him when he was going to give us the moment of truth. They say you shouldn't interrupt somebody when they're about to give you gold. And I interrupted him, and I feel like this is the gold. So, Arthur, could you tell us what that moment of truth is?
I have no idea. I'm just kidding. really whip the legs out underneath you.
Okay, so we'll move now to our next guest who might remember what he was saying.
Yes. So the moment of truth is, something has happened, a disaster of some sort has taken place, and that an MOT can be turned into a MOM or a MOM. It's either turned into a moment of misery or a moment of magic. A moment of misery would be, let's use that same example that I gave you earlier of the car rental. You arrive there and now they don't have a car for you. The moment of misery is when they start explaining to you that you didn't actually reserve the car and you don't have the documentation, and let me see on your phone where it's confirmed, and they start interrogating you and making it your fault. A moment of magic happened to me when I was, and I talk about this in the book, of when I was traveling around the countryside. We chartered an aircraft and went Cape Town, George, Oudtshoorn, Port Elizabeth, East London, and Durban. And we landed in Durban, and it was really late at night. We were absolutely exhausted. And I walked up to the counter. I needed a minibus because we had a couple of people with us. And got there and I said, "Do you have a minibus for me?" And the woman behind the counter was spectacular. She said the following. She said, "Mr. Gillis, we do not have a minibus for you. Reserved. However, I know you. You travel to Durban quite often. Here are the keys of a minibus. We'll sort it out later." She didn't go into whose fault it was. And as it happened, it was my fault because I thought we'd only get as far as East London. So we'd been booked in East London, not in Durban. It was my fault, or one of our team's fault. She didn't do that. She didn't move to whose fault it was. She said, "Let me solve the problem." And that is spectacular customer service. In another example, it would be where something happens, a guest slips and falls, and we train people, everybody, to run towards the problem, not away from it. The natural reaction is to say, "Look, I don't want to get involved." The best reaction is when something happens, is to go way over the top and use that as an opportunity to create a friend. And that's what creates an Instagrammable moment. And that's what creates people writing on social media. And that's what creates the opportunity for people to talk to their friends and family. Because if I go to Joburg and stay in any hotel, Protea hotel, whatever, I get there, it's late, I've got a meeting, I check in, I check out, I'm in the car, and I speak to Lauren, my wife, and she says, "Where did you stay last night?" And it's kind of like, I can't really remember. It was one of these hotels, I don't know. I checked in late, checked out early. But if something happened and they did, then I say, "Let me tell you what happened." And now I start telling her a story. And by me telling the story, I've created a narrative, which is what builds word of mouth as opposed to word of mouth.
Mm.
That was our theory. Whether it works or not, I don't know. It seems to work quite well for us.
So I like the acronym MOM, because you have to call out MOM, your moments of either misery or your moments of magic.
Right.
So one day I want to hear what your acronym for dad is. I'm sure it's not as good as your acronym for mom.
Sorry, David, I just want to make one point here.
Yeah.
A lot of what I'm saying sounds simplistic, childlike even. But the only way that everybody in the organization can work with us is if everybody understands. So if I say good show, poor show, or if I say there's a moment of truth, I don't have to explain what that is. A lot of corporations that I speak to, they've got these mission statements. They go on for 4 pages. They've danced on the head of a pin. They've moved this comma there and this and there. Then you go to the people working in the organization and you say, "What's the mission statement, or what are your values?" They have no idea. They have no idea. It's by a guy who I think is the best business professor in the world, a guy called Professor Itzhak Adizes from Stanford. Itzhak says, "It takes a genius to convert complexity into simplicity." So this genius at Protea was the product of everybody who was there. Everybody who was there had input into how do we condense this particular challenge into the exigence of the matter and keep it very tight and very small and very smart. And then everybody in the organization knows that it's easy to train, it's easy to remember, and we've all bought into it. Whereas people who start with these very long, rambling statements, you lose everybody along the way.
I mean, it's so simple that I know that I'm going to be using this. Actually, even for everything I do, is to ask myself, was that a moment of misery or a moment of magic? You know that the quote of making it simple. Apparently, there's a quote from Winston Churchill who said, "I wrote a long letter because I didn't have time to write a short letter," which is exactly what you're saying. It's harder to make it simple. So just moving on a little bit from, you managed to create this unbelievable group of Protea hotels, over 100 hotels, and then you sold it. Why did you sell it? And you're still in the hotel game. So why did you sell it, and why are you still in the hotel game?
First of all, when you say you managed to build this, you
As a team
obviously applies in plural. And because I happen to be the temporary CEO, okay, for 40 years, but I was at the helm of that organization together with some extremely talented individuals. It kind of looked like it was me, but it wasn't me at all. It was everybody. Every single person in the organization carried our vision and our dream and our mission and all that forward. So yes, what we managed to create in Protea was something very special. It was a unique time. A number of people had tried a hotel management company before us. And in the next, I think, 8 years, 50 companies opened and closed, trying to replicate what we did. They didn't understand that Otto's extraordinary genius, and forgive me if I talk a lot about him, but he's that kind of guy. He took a Dutchman from Holland and a Portuguese guy and a black woman and this Boerejood from Oudtshoorn and all sorts of unlikely people, and put them together in a hodgepodge and more diversity as we went along, and created this opportunity that everybody could actually be a part of. And by having constructive disagreement, we were able to do that which the public then saw as 128 hotels in 9 countries and so on. There came a time after a while where we looked at the future trajectory of the business and said, we can hang on here forever and just be old and rotten and miserable. But we owe it to every one of our associates, every person who's with us on the journey, to actually give them bigger opportunities. And as the hotel business globalized, we went out. I happened to go to America, and I interviewed the CEOs of the biggest hotel groups out there. By this stage, everybody wanted it. Absolutely everybody wanted it. So the price that we got for it was, we had 50 conditions. It was number 50. It was, they would all have paid it. That wasn't the point. The point is, do your values align with us? And if your values align with ours, then we know that this is good. So I met with Arnie Sorensen, the late incredible leader, head of Marriott, and we sat down, and I had a friend who was a friend of his who introduced us, and we spoke about our children for about 2 hours. We didn't say one word about the hotel business. And he spoke about the dreams and wishes and aspirations for his children, and I spoke about mine. And at the end of it, he said, right, we got a deal. And we said, hang on, we haven't spoken about the hotel business. He said, don't worry, we've researched you, we know who you are. And I said, well, as it happens, we've researched you guys as well. But their first principle is putting people first. So that aligned exactly with respect for human dignity. And Arnie was as good as his word. What we shook hands on was eventually what was delivered by a team of lawyers and accountants and people like that. And he certainly lived up to his side of that bargain. And that gave the opportunity. And people have now gone on who were in the organization, who were a lot younger, and they've got international careers with Marriott and some of them with other hotel groups. Because there's a limit to what you can do in South Africa, and there's a limit to what you can do in Africa. And we decided the opportune time was to go there. We sold to Marriott the IP, we sold the brands, we sold all that kind of stuff, the management contracts, franchise agreements, etc. But because of the requirements they have on the New York Stock Exchange, they may not own bricks and mortar. So many of our owners continued as owners. The management contract was simply transferred to them, but there were a number of hotels that we owned, my partners and I, and by partners, that's 30% Investec, 40% a BEE, a broad-based BEE consortium, and then 30% kind of myself and some of the management. And the same consortium decided to continue going forward, and that's exactly what we've done. And we haven't, in the last 12 years, sold any shares or bought any shares. Everybody's along for the ride. I think the reason is because I tend to amuse them at board meetings, completely politically incorrect, absolutely dismissive of convention, and we do fun things, and a lot of them say this is the funnest board that they're on. But I got a phone call today from one of them. We need to go and have a look at the new hotel we're building in Mauritius. I said, which hotel? No, we'll just make one up and we'll all go there on a holiday. I said, okay, you're doing it, but not on my dime. And so we do stuff. We try and make it fun. We try and make it fun for the board members. We try and make it fun for everybody else. At the same time, it's a serious and awesome responsibility. By awesome, I mean, in the old tradition of the word, the you know, it's a task, it's a responsibility, because you look at people, they've got children, they pay school fees, they've got to pay a mortgage. We better make sure that the money that's coming in every month is there to look after them. And so we are the only hotel group in the universe that paid 100 cents in the rand during COVID to every one of our associates. Everyone. Wow. They got money. Because I just felt that it would be completely incorrect that the board of directors took dividends out and rode on the shoulders of people who could least afford it. So we said, we'll just take a holiday on dividends and we'll give everybody their salaries. And then the other thing we did, which Marriott says they got 9,500 hotels. We're the only hotel group who paid bonuses during COVID. We continued paying bonuses because that's just, it's like hopefully the embodiment of respect for human dignity.
Wow, so you're really living those values. And I can't believe how the time is going. And I feel like I want to continue this for another couple of hours, but we're running out of time. And I just want to ask you a couple of questions towards the end. Anybody listening to this, maybe starting out their careers, what can you share as a mentor, maybe 3-4 points of what should somebody focus on in order to be successful, other than what you've spoken about? Is there something else? Number one. And number two, where's Arthur going in the future? What's the future hold for Arthur? What do you want to be doing from now on? Do you want to continue doing what you're doing, or do you want to do something different? And just before you answer, anyone who's just tuned in and you wondering who's Arthur, it's Arthur Gillis. He's the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings.
Okay, so what advice would I give to people? Obviously, be curious, set values that everybody can understand. And, I just love the way that you did the intro, so I'm going to come back to it. The thing about sleep, I love sleeping. But when we've got a problem, somebody must not be sleeping. Somebody has to be awake with a problem. And the joke in the office is, who didn't sleep last night? Because as long as somebody's not sleeping, then somebody's holding the problem, okay? I'd prefer if it wasn't me, but if it is me, then I am not going to sleep. Because somebody should be taking it that seriously. Who's affected by this decision? Take it seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. Have fun. One of our slogans was Protea Hotels having a little fun. And we invented a campaign. And one day my phone rings and it's David Kramer. And David, I said, David, if you're having a stroke, just press 1 and I'll send somebody to you. I'll kind of geolocate you and I'll get you there. And the reason that he's laughing, okay, he says, I'm in a hotel in George and I found the bottle of hand and body lotion. And on the side, it says shampoo for bald people. And I thought of you and I phoned you. and this tickled David's fancy. He loved this idea. It was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. So here's somebody who writes comedic things and serious things for a living, and he found it. So he phoned Renee, and then they phoned their kids, and then he told everybody about it. And we created those opportunities to do that. But the reason that we did that was that the ad agency said, we've done ads for you. But they're boring. They're the same rubbish that everybody else has got. And so we created 1,000 points on this Protea Hotels having a little fun. We introduced them into the hotels slowly. And people, every time they went back, would find the latest one. But they would be hidden on a box of matches, or they'd be hidden. This hotel has no gym. Please feel free to run up and down the stairs, like that. But arbitrary things in funny places. And it's very difficult because humor, when we did it then, it was difficult. Now it's even more difficult because one doesn't want to offend somebody quite correctly. But at the same time, let's have a joke, let's laugh. And so what I do is I tend to make self-depreciating jokes about myself, and then everybody finds it okay to have jokes, and anybody can joke with me. And so we take ourselves hopefully not too seriously. So that's part of this. And build a culture that is true to your own values. But you've got to live that culture. You can't say we care for the people around us. One of the hotels that we deflagged from Protea is Kruger Gate Hotel. And I was up there yesterday. And we've just spent our second R1.5 million building a well together with Innovation Africa for people in the village that have never had water. And our family also sponsored one, and Lauren was there, and she opened the well, and it's amazing. I mean, it's life-changing. We also have introduced a new program there where instead of buying stuff from the market in Johannesburg or in Nelspruit, we've taken local people, we've taught them how to cultivate the land, we've given them the seeds, we've given them the know-how, we've given them the equipment, we've given them the water, and we've given them a guaranteed offtake at today's market prices. So we go to farmer A and we say, we'll take 20 cases of tomatoes every single day from you. Number 2 is cabbage, and number 3 is lettuce, and so on. And everything that they grow over and above that, they are free to keep or sell. So we are empowering people. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is absolutely the way that we do stuff. And then the chef came to us and said, we can't do like exotic herbs. So he's doing it. He's got cages in the back of the hotel and he's growing herbs and spices there. Anyway, that's the story.
I've just got a quick little statement to add to your 100 little statements of giving water to people in the area. You can say, we wish you well. So that's my...
Thank you. We will do that. I'm going to do that. We're opening another one next week. We're going to use that. Thank you.
Arthur, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you, learning from you. This has definitely been my moment of magic. I want to thank Arthur Gillis, the CEO of Platinum Hospitality Holdings, for joining us this evening. I'm David Zidel, and this has been the Ort Jet Business Show. Arthur, thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. Thank you. It's always fun.
And just ending on a well, you were a well of information, and that's as interviewing somebody, that's always brilliant. Thank you.
It's a privilege to do this. What I didn't say, because we ran out of time, but I would urge people to be vocal. I would urge people to come on shows like this, because the more you talk about it, I mean, without question, a number of our team are going to listen to this, and then they're going to challenge me if I said something that I don't do. My children will listen to it, my grandchildren will listen to it, and they say, but that's not how you behave. You actually have done ABC, which is different. And that getting people to disagree in an agreeable way, that's the big trick, that we can teach people that.